The third category of Tawheed that we will briefly look at and dissect is the Tawheed of Allah's names and attributes. The Tawheed of Allah's names and attributes. And it is very sorry to say, but it was this category of Tawheed where the Muslims, they divided themselves into different groups. Some of them going astray and some of them being guided. And Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, it is for somebody to have a firm belief that to Allah belongs the most beautiful names and attributes. And we affirm for Allah whatever He affirmed for Himself in the book and the Sunnah. So when we come to talk about the different kinds of Muslims that went astray, the first group of Muslims that went astray is what we call the deniers. So they said about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He doesn't speak, and He doesn't see, and He doesn't hear. He doesn't have these attributes. And why did they say that, I hear you ask? How can somebody say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't speak? Are there Muslims that say this? Yes, there's Muslims that say this on this very day, and with the breath that we speak right now. And the reason why they said this is because they was trying to glorify Allah. Because they thought, if we affirm for Allah speech or hearing or seeing, we're going to make Him like the creation. So to glorify Him, we're going to deny that He's got any attributes. So they went astray. And these groups, this first group is called the Mu'attala. The second group, what did they say? They said, yes, Allah has got these attributes. He has a hand, and He has a face, and He can hear, and He can see. But this hearing and seeing is like our hearing and seeing. And they went astray, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is nothing like Him. The third category of Muslims that went astray with regards to the names and attributes of Allah were those people who gave a false interpretation of the names and attributes. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that He's got hands, they said that these hands, they mean power. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, the merciful, He rose above His throne, they said the merciful has conquered His throne. So they went astray because they changed the meaning of the attributes of Allah. The fourth category was Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And these were the people that were guided to the truth. And I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make me and you from them. They affirmed for Allah what He affirmed for Himself in the Quran, without saying how, or without saying, or without denying, or without explaining away. So we affirm a hand for Allah. But how is this hand? We don't know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said He's above His arsh. How is He above His arsh? We don't know. We don't say sitting, He is above His arsh. So we affirm for Allah without denying, without saying how, or without making a similitude. And so these are the three categories of Tawheed that I've briefly touched upon. And in just closing, I would just like to mention or ask the question, why was the messengers sent to mankind? Now that we know what Tawheed is, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send these 144,000 messengers and prophets that was reported in one hadith? The number one reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent these messengers throughout the ages from the time of Adam to the last of them, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, was to guide them to a Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. As I mentioned the ayah before, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولٍ أَنْ أَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. We sent a messenger to every nation proclaiming, worship Allah and stay away from false gods. He did not say, affirm for Allah that you got a Lord or that Allah exists. This was never the discussion or the argument. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاعْبُدُونِ. And we did not send a messenger before you, O Muhammad, except that we revealed to him that La ilaha illallah, none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, so worship Him. It's time. Yeah. The second reason is to convey the message of mankind. And the third reason is to bring mankind from darkness into light. So bring them out of the darkness of shirk to the light of Tawheed, to the darkness of fornication and gangs and drugs, to the beauty of marriage and brotherhood and the Quran. And the fourth reason that the messengers were sent is to give glad tidings and to give warnings. So the glad tidings is that the one who implements Tawheed, he will have or she will have a good life. And in the hereafter, they will have the paradise. So we comfort ourselves, whatever trials or tribulations that we are going through in this life, we comfort ourselves that with the fact that we will, inshallah, inherit the paradise. And the last reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent the messengers was for them to establish the hujjah on mankind, that they did indeed convey the message, so that mankind will have no plea against Allah on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and they will not come on Yawm al-Qiyamah and say, if only you sent a messenger, we would have followed him and been amongst the believers. This was my brief presentation. Maghrib is upon us, and so I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make me and you people who learn Tawheed and actualize it in our lives, so that we can be inheritors of the paradise. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله.